topic over here that comes up a bunch of times in a variety of ways, and I want to go around really quick. And the big headline here is best way to find rental. Now, the specific example here is from Karen, who says, need to find 2 months of lodging to do work with AmeriCorps on Maui. Any suggestions? Probably near Pukalani. Thanks for any help. But let's hit the topic, because we had about this conversation off camera last week, where we talked about sort of what should you do if you want to find rentals, and there's no really well established sort of rental agents here in Hawaii that are geared. There's a variety of economic reasons why that doesn't work, and so the question is, what's the best way to find rentals? Scott, what's your advice when someone says, look, we need to find some rentals? What should we do to find this places to rent? Where do we go?
I mean, right now it's Airbnb, VRBO, Zillow. I think it's apartments.com. Those are kind of the main ones. It's going to the websites. And now, because we don't have the tourists, this is the time to be able to find the affordable rental and negotiate more flexible terms. Whether you have a pet, people are going to be more flexible if you have a pet to be able to get in even in that capacity. So it's hitting the main sites and negotiating.
And there was another question about pets as well. So basically what you're saying is hit the main sites: Airbnb, VRBO, apartments. I think it's apartments.com or something like that. There's apartments. Yeah. So Dylan, what's your advice on the big on finding a rental?
This is a real conundrum right now. And I get asked this, because we've talked about it, but I get asked this almost weekly, multiple times weekly. And so you have to figure out, okay, do you want a long-term rental, which is really like 6+ months, or do you want a short-term rental, which is going to be, 30 minus days plus days, somewhere in there. But the problem is that if you're looking for like a 2 or 3 month rental to come here and serve a quarantine and look for property, the short-term rentals are basically shut down. On our island, our mayor and planning department have interpreted that if you're a short-term rental, you can't take off your hat as a short-term rental and then long-term rent, which would be over the 30-day short-term rental definition. And then if you go to the long-term rental market, which you need to go to there's several companies that do long-term rental management. They are not necessarily going to consider a 2 or 3 month rental because they want a 6 month or a 12-month lease on those properties. So you're in a real catch-22 on the Big Island right now, specifically because of the short-term rental pretty much being shut down. If you're coming from somewhere, it's basically illegal right now for a short-term rental to rent to someone who has to serve their quarantine. So if you need to come here and serve your quarantine, you have to do it in a hotel.
And what does the quarantine? But you still can't. Let's say you're past quarantine, you still can't do a short-term rental because the short-term rentals are all shut down. So you still have that, right?
Technically, I believe you can. If they're local on island, you can rent to somebody who's local on island who is not serving their quarantine. It's a quarantine restriction that.
So it's a quarantine restriction.
Prohibits you. Yeah.
Okay. So if I got this right, what you want to do on the Big Island is you want to serve out your quarantine 14 days at a hotel property. Get a nice one. But once you've served out that 14-day, then you can perhaps find a short-term rental that's available to you. Is that right?
Correct.
Excellent. Great. Heidi, what's your this originated as a Maui question here. How would you respond? What's the best way to find rentals in Maui?
Yeah, great question. Well, I'm not sure when Karen is planning on coming out to Maui and if that quarantine requirement is going to be in effect or not, but I think Dylan touched on that. As far as in Pukalani, it's really not a resort area. You're not going to find short-term rentals, and Maui County defines a long-term rental as at least 6 months or 180 days. So I really think your best bet, because you are going there for AmeriCorps, is to just do some networking. Craigslist, Facebook, network, maybe through a church or community center or something. I mean, I think it's going to be more of a word of mouth thing, finding somebody has an extra space to house you. I don't think there's any formal rental agency that's really going to have something they'll be advertising for 2 months in Pukalani. But it never hurts to reach out to some long-term rental managers and just ask the question and do a little networking, and I'm confident you can find something. But yeah, on Maui there are not full-time realtors assisting people with rentals because generally the demand for rentals is just so high here. I mean, people or find rentals quickly, and there's no need for realtors to be involved.
So what would be your generic advice? Say let's take Pukalani out of it. What's your generic advice for people that want to find a place to rent on Maui? Let's say while they're looking at properties or things of that nature. What would your response be?
Well, if they have to come in quarantine, they should stay in a hotel. I mean, unless they own a property or have a friend that owns a property, they can stay in. They can't rent a vacation rental if they're subject to the quarantine.
So is that like the Big Island where if you're in quarantine, you can't stay at sort of a short-term vacation rental? You'd want to serve out your 14 days on a hotel property and then perhaps go to a vacation rental for a slightly longer rent? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Got it.
Here's my simple advice: don't be picky. Just take what you can get. If it's a rental, it's temporary, so don't like have all these crazy requirements. And another big one: try not to bring your pet, because that'll eliminate a vast majority of rentals if you need to have a pet.
And this goes to, again, I mean, pets overall are more difficulty, but certainly for the short-term thing, if you're looking to rent for a month or two, just to kind of do your looking around, see if you could leave your pet at a pet hotel where you're back, where you live while you do your searching. So if I quickly summarize this, because this comes up a lot, quick summarize is you want to serve out your quarantine at a hotel property, get that done, and then look at the openings that are available through the Airbnb, VRBO, those sort of places where you can kind of stay at a short-term rental that's outside of quarantine. Do I have that right, gang? Is there any kind of a correction that needs to be made? Scott's got a point.
Yeah, Oahu's
Okay.
not the same. So you can go straight in. And I would say if you're looking for housing to buy real estate, then so this is a different answer. You quarantine for 14 days. Then how long, unless you know exactly where you're going to be and that property is on the market, okay, how long do you need for that next property to come up and for you to find it and get familiar with the areas and the neighborhoods? It may take 60 days. Then you got a 45-day escrow. Then you want to move in, say you need 2 weeks. You're looking 4 to 6 months that you really need on that rental time frame. The other thing I would say with the pet is there are quarantine laws here, and you can avoid those quarantine laws. We probably should discuss that at some point and have that.
Another show. That's another show. Yeah, a pet quarantine, which is
how
always
do you
always
avoid pet quarantine? But for me, I recommend minimum 3 months to 6 months is what you need if you're looking for property.
So if you're looking for the big differences are on Oahu. You can go straight into a short-term rental, a 3 to 6 month short-term rental if you're looking for real estate. Again, this is the context of looking for real estate. On the Big Island and on Maui, you first need to serve out your 14-day quarantine at a hotel property. Then you can move into a short-term rental. And I think to Heidi's point, this is where your networking is going to be really important. Okay, final.